Most people want just a little bit more than they already have. Could be money, latest gadget, or perhaps even a new car.
People live in one of two tents: content or discontent. However long you take agonizing over the menu, deciding which dessert to have, when the person's next to you arrives, you realize you've made the wrong choice.
I swear by Almighty God
that the evidence I give
will be the truth, the whole truth,
and nothing but the truth.
To track me down is impossible. The harder you try, the more elusive I become. I am nobody's friend. Once I tarnish a reputation, it is never the same. I topple governments, I wreck marriages, I ruin careers, I cause sleepless nights and heartaches, I spawn suspicion and generate grief. I make innocent people cry on their pillows. Even my name hisses. Gossip.
But eventually, I had to steal. It was a way of surviving. See, I had an habit, I was a heroin addict, and I had to get the money from somewhere to fund that habit. And the easiest way for me to do that was to go out and steal.
Do you think having a one-night stand can sometimes spice up a relationship?
They could. They could possibly, but the chances are quite slim.
There was this bishop that was visiting one of his churches, and it was on Mother's Day. And the minister of the church was giving the sermon, and he started the sermon by saying, I spent the best years of my life in the arms of another man's wife. Pause. My father's wife. And the bishop thought, that is really good, that is really good. He thought, tonight, when I go and preach at another church, I'll start off with that illustration. So in the evening, he goes to this other church, he gets up to give the sermon, and he says, I spent the best years of my life in the arms of another man's wife. Pause. And then he had a blank. And then he said, I just can't remember who.
In this country, hundreds of people were murdered in the last year.
And there were over 700,000 violent crimes reported.
I respect my mum. I don't really respect my dad.
I respect them in that they put food on the table, earn money, and yeah, they're nice people.
You see, no matter how strained our relationship is with our parents, there is always the possibility for improvement. Therefore, there is always the possibility of hope. So the question, how do we keep the peace with our parents?
Sunday trading has only been lawful since 1995, when the Sunday trading laws were changed, and this enabled most bigger stores to trade for up to 6 hours on a Sunday.
Would you agree that the pace of life is hectic? You know, we talk, don't we, of the peak or the rush hour, and we're always telling our children to hurry up and get a move on. How often have you heard yourself or others say, if only I had the time, there's never enough time, I don't know where the time goes, but how do you find the time? I'm hard pressed for time, I'll try to find time. Is that the time already?
I'd like to be remembered as somebody who other people felt close to.
Not as someone who moans all the time, which I do.
As a young, thinking, old-school designer who was nice to his family and children and got them moved out of London.
I have a 60-month-old daughter. I guess I'd like to remember it as being a good father.
The only thing that you could rely on if you were God and someone used your name in a derogatory way would be defamation. So the person would actually have to attack your reputation.
He was the bread of life so that bakers can understand. The water of life so that plumbers can understand. The light of the world so that electricians can understand. The cornerstone so that architects can understand. The sun of righteousness so that astronomers can understand. The hidden treasure so that bankers can understand. The life so that biologists can understand. The door so that carpenters can understand. The great physician so that nurses and doctors can understand. The good teacher so that educators can understand. The lily of the valley so that florists can understand. The rock of ages so that geologists can understand. The true vine so that horticulturalists can understand. The righteous one so that judges can understand. The pearl of great price so that jewelers can understand. He is wisdom so that philosophers can understand. He is the word so that actors can understand. He is the good shepherd so that farmers can understand. He is the Alpha and the Omega so that scientists can understand. He is the way so that traffic wardens can understand. He is the truth so that politicians can understand.
Why do you think people need heroes?
Well, it's nice to have somewhere to look up to.
Someone to idolise, maybe.
To motivate them.
Leads them on a better path in life, not as likely to do drugs or get into bad things like crime.
Keeps people off the streets, it gives them an interest.
Did you know that when the first Russian astronaut returned from space, at his first interview, the first question was, "Did you see God?" He said, "No, I did not." And the Soviet Union heralded this as proof that God did not exist. When the first American astronaut returned from space, at his first interview, do you know what the fourth question was? The fourth question was, "Did you see God?" And he said, "I would have seen God had I stepped out of my spacesuit." You know, two very complete different understandings of the word God. I spoke at this college, this student came up to me afterwards and said, "I can't believe in anything I don't understand." I said, "Really?" He said, "Yes." I said, "What are you studying?" He said, "Agriculture." I said, "Well, tell me this, how is it possible for a black cow to eat green grass and produce white milk?"
Family, career, children, money, food. What's the most important thing in your life?
My husband.
My children.
My wife. Just to try and make a living and support the family.
What can't you do without?
My happiness.
Health, love and money.
Career, I think, would probably be my first priority.
Things we need?
Just to find a place to sleep.
The health of the nation.
What are your priorities?